Funny enough, bass guitar is something I've never taken seriously. I never actually think of myself as a bass player. And I know that's what I kind of got lucky with. But I've never worked at it. I've never practiced much to Ritchie's disgust, because he's a practicer. And he always used to say to me, so if you worked at it, you'd be much better. And my attitude to that is that I'm as good as I can be, because it's what I do naturally. And I've got no pretensions to be the greatest bass player in the world. In fact, I get very embarrassed when people come up to me and say, oh, you're a great bass player.
In 1984, legendary hard rock band Deep Purple finally reunited, bringing back the iconic Mark II lineup of Ian Gillan, Ritchie Blackmore, Roger Glover, John Lord, and Ian Paice. Their comeback album Perfect Strangers showcased their renewed energy and musical prowess, delighting fans with powerful new tracks and a triumphant world tour. This reunion reignited Deep Purple's flame, celebrating their storied past while propelling them into an exciting new chapter of rock and roll history. Here follows a candid interview with bassist Roger Glover.
From the LP Perfect Strangers, released worldwide today, that was A Gypsy's Kiss. In Deep Purple, the bass is played by Roger Glover.
The first song I ever performed live was the Rock Island line, which I learned from Lonnie Donegan. So it was like kind of gentle strumming. But when we decided to form a band, the guys in my class, there were two other guys. One was better at playing tunes and the other knew more chords. So they said, well, you can be the bass player. And I kind of resented it at first. But very quickly, kind of slotted in. It became a natural instrument for me. So yes, it's always been the bass. I've dabbled around in other things since. But bass guitar has always been what I've played.
What is the attraction of the bass guitar for a man such as yourself, because you're also a writer? Now, you don't normally write on the bass guitar.
I don't write on the bass guitar, actually. Funny enough, bass guitar is something I've never taken seriously. I never actually think of myself as a bass player. And I know that's what I kind of got lucky with. But I've never worked at it. I've never practiced much to Ritchie's disgust, because he's a practicer. And he always used to say to me, so if you worked at it, you'd be much better. And my attitude to that is that I'm as good as I can be, because it's what I do naturally. And I've got no pretensions to be the greatest bass player in the world. In fact, I get very embarrassed when people come up to me and say, oh, you're a great bass player. I go, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about, because I don't try at it. What's more important to me is to write and to have an input on other levels other than just being a musician.
Because it was always said of you that during the Deep Purple years, that you were the man that would be at the back of the control room, watching the engineer, watching the producer all the time.
I think the production side of it is more to do with personality. It's strange. There's more bass players that make producers than any other instrumentalist.
But of everybody in Deep Purple, you are the one with the most production experience. You are the guy who's produced this album. For a while, it was lots of names were bandied around, lots of them, which I could never quite understand, because I always thought, hang about, in the lineup there's a producer there already with incredible and enormous experience.
In that very first meeting that we had, we covered a lot of points. We kind of had an agenda, and we said, right, are we going to do it? That was the first thing. Yes, we're going to do it. And if we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, where we're going to record, who's going to be the manager, and all this kind of stuff. And somewhere down on the agenda was producer. And at this point, I said, well, I'd like to make a statement at this point. I'd like to say that, we all know that I've been the producer of all of us. I've had a lot of experience. But I don't want to do this album. This is a reunion of what we were. And I think for me to suddenly stand up and start giving orders around, or at least giving my advice or helping or whatever, I'd feel a little uncomfortable about that. And it was also, I felt, a hell of a responsibility on my shoulders. And if it turned out really badly, it would give everyone a kind of scapegoat. And I was a bit worried about that, because I wasn't 100% sure that it was going to work when we first started. And so I said, well, I think we should get either an independent producer or we should all do it. And as it turned out, we decided all to do it. And the first couple of sessions we did, Ritchie was doing his first overdub, and he said, well, do you want to come in and help? So, sure. And then John Lord said the same thing. And of course, Ian Gillan and I write the lyrics together. So consequently, I became involved in the performing of those lyrics. And it was after about a week, Ritchie said to me, he said, it's going to be difficult for you not to produce, isn't it? And already I'd fallen into the role. I mean, completely unconsciously. I could not stay out of the control room. And so by kind of unspoken consent, I became the producer, against my wishes. But having done it, I felt really good about it.
Get ready to dance, everybody, yeah!
Rock Commander is a celebration of rock and metal culture. Manage your own rock bands, connect with a passionate community, and experience exclusive collaborations with real bands like American Chaos and Adam and the Metal Hawks.
But also you were the person that would have understood all the modern technology that has evolved since Deep Purple broke up, because you've constantly been in the control room. So you would know how to use that. But the nice thing about the album is that you don't hear the modern technology.
I think with a band like Deep Purple, it's very important to be natural. And what's natural for us is like, it's a bit, the parallel, I suppose, would be the stand-up comedian, you know, who kind of lives by his wits, and he works on the feel of the crowd. Deep Purple is that kind of band. We're really at our best when we're live. But in the studio, if we start getting a bit too pretentious in terms of sound and technology, it wouldn't really be us. It wouldn't be natural. So the sound has got to be very natural, very live sounding, very live feeling.
But I think it would be fair to say that when you listen to the album, that you can hear all the bands, or elements of all the bands that every member's been in over the years, but still encapsulated in a Deep Purple sound, which must have meant that you had to, as the producer somewhere down the line, indicated that it was worthwhile sifting various things out to make them a good ingredient of the whole.
It would have been nice if I'd done that. Thanks a lot, but I didn't. I think I went into the first meeting of a reunion with a kind of 50-50 attitude, because for the last 6 years I've been totally against it. And I'm only human, I can change my mind. And it was 50-50 at the meeting. We decided to jam together. And then it became 75-25. And when we first wrote our first song, I went, great, 100%. Only because I felt we had something to offer as a band. And I didn't actually do anything as a producer to change that. I mean, I might have done as a writer. But as a producer, I didn't sit down and say, look, this is what we've got to do. We've got to take the best of the technology we've got available, but still retain the spirit and all that. The spirit was there, despite anything I would have thought. When we came back from our first rehearsals in Vermont, I got a little wasted one night, and I played all the old bootlegs and all the old live recordings of Deep Purple. And I played the new tapes that we just recorded in this basement. And the thing that struck me was that the same spirit was there. So it didn't come from me, that came from the band. And I think whatever influences we've garnered in the last 11 years would become apparent anyway. It wouldn't need anyone to point it out.
Of the tracks that are available on the album, which one would you like me to play, Roger?
My favourite track on the album is Perfect Strangers. I don't know whether anyone else has mentioned that in the band, but that's, to me, is one of the greatest tracks I've been involved in, either writing or producing or playing in. It does something to me that's quite magic. And in fact, Nick, our engineer, because being the producer, Nick and I we got a pretty good relationship. Late one night, we've been working really hard. We were both very tired. We were just about to pack up and go home, and he turned to me and he said, Perfect Strangers. He said, I've never been so proud of anything in my life as that. And that meant a lot to me, coming from him. He's been around for years and years and years and done millions of things. And I know what he's trying to say. I don't know what it is. There's something about that song that means a lot to me. And I don't really know what it's about. It's just there's a feeling I get when it starts. It just kicks in. I love it.
What are you most proud of on a production level You produce Status Quo, Elf, Rainbow, and so on, and your own stuff as well. What are you most proud of?
I'm not really proud of anything I've done. But the first Elf album, I still play to this day, and there's very few albums that I've produced that I play for enjoyment. Actually, not just the first Elf album, but all the Elf albums. For people who don't know what Elf was, in 1972, Ian Paice and I were invited to CBS Studios to listen to this band that were looking for a recording contract, and we did it for a laugh. You know, we were two guys in a band. We were touring the States. We had a couple of weeks off. We had nothing to do, and this weird bunch of individuals walked into the studio. All of them no higher than a Marshall 4x12. And Ian and I kind of looked at each other and oh, what are we in for now, you know? And they strapped on the guitars and started playing, and it was magic. It was straight down boogie, hard rock. It was great. And we got so excited by it that we said, yeah, we'd do it. I mean, not just we'd do it because we had nothing to do. We really wanted to do it. And I had such a belief in that band. And I was really kind of hurt when the whole thing kind of folded without any real success. Because I can listen to those albums now and think, whatever I did was I captured that initial feeling that I first felt. And that, to me, is the essence of a producer, is capturing what a band is.
There was a time when you were declared redundant from Deep Purple. Do you remember how you felt about it then?
Yeah, I felt pretty awful. I felt bad at the time because it was done kind of underhand way, and I've since talked out all my differences with all the various members. And I don't hold any grudges or anything to them, anyway. And I felt like a real has-been. And it was a long fight to actually get faith in yourself and belief in yourself. And there was a time, I think, roughly when I turned about 30, I thought, oh, it's all over. The high point of my life has been and gone. And that was being in Deep Purple. And what's going to happen from now on is all going to be an echo of that. And it took me a long, long time to actually fight back and say, well, I can't say what I want to say, but to actually fight back and have faith in yourself. I think there was a sense of unfinished business after that last Purple lineup. My input on a writing side was really very big, and it didn't get recognized as such. And I feel now as a kind of weird justification for all that pain I went through. Now I feel that my input to the band is recognized, and I feel much better about it. The real problem in the old days is that we never really talked enough. We never had time to talk. We were worked like slaves, just, you know, because no one knew at that time that Deep Purple would become what it's become. And what's happened is, in fact, a real a good fairy story, because it's the public that's really made it that way. And that's something I'll be forever grateful to. The public recognized us for whatever we were as being a bit more than just as good as your last single. There are certain people that were so loyal that I think that's the only reason why we're here today, is because those people made it happen.
Roger Glover. And the album Perfect Strangers by Deep Purple is now available. That was called Wasted Sunsets. Many thanks to Ritchie Blackmore, Ian Gillan, Roger Glover, John Lord and Ian Paice for their time. Thanks to the landlord of the Ship in Bedford and also the bar staff at the Moat Hotel for their hospitality. And as somebody said when they first heard the album, oh well, I think all the other bands better go back to school. On behalf of all the people on the music side of Radio 1, this is Tommy Vance. I wish you well. Have yourself a very, very good weekend and a safe weekend as well. God bless. Good night.